Namaste Galactic family, and welcome back to my channel Indigo Angel. Welcome if you're new, and if you're returning, don't forget to hit the notifications bell and like this video as you come on in. And as always, thank you so much for your continued love and support of my channel. This is going to be a cosmic energy update and basically some recap of some relevant highlights of things I have spoke about in other videos up until this point in accordance to current events. As a lot is just still very relative. A lot of the videos I've recently put out, even though they're all categorized, so to speak, in different under different titles, essentially I'm kind of collaborating a lot of information today and just also highlighting some points in accordance to the Trinity Gate sites and to the astral feed line and disconnect on certain fields of reality between 3D to 5D and density 2 and 3 within those specific gate vortexes in the planet. So I've talked about these gate sites. I've done the activation. You guys have seen me go through all of this. Essentially, these gate sites are the portions of the planetary shield structures that are the most heavily hijacked. That's why there's such a call at this time to pay attention to this, as all of the energy planetarily starts amping up in new levels of this heightened plasma field. And so these swarms of plasma will generate around water formations, around the specific gate sites and vortexes that are known to be hijacked. There's a reason why they're hijacked, is because they're heightened plasma. There's more energy to siphon at these locations. There's also higher success rates of the collective field portion formation around the gate site to become infiltrated. It's easier to infiltrate here. So I'm going to explain more of this later in the video as well. But essentially, not all of the gate sites are listed in the Ascension Glossary. And because there's a lot of complexity to this, essentially every gate site also has an occult counterpart in accordance to the subatomic field, in accordance to the era of continental consciousness, as well as depending on your visibility spectrum into extended hyper-equatorial codes, or what is also called the Nazca line. So some of you have seen some of the videos I've done about the Nazca lines, extenuating around and meeting at Angkor Watts. This would be considered the pre-Lemurian, equatorial encoding. So this is also in accordance to that. It's also in accordance to geographical formations and pole shift global realities and generating ley line manifestations. So you can see within one gate, there's an immensity of depth of identification that extends as an echo, like into the plasma fields, into the memory fields of all existence, right? And so it makes it a very complex topic and subject to talk about. And when you're speaking with a high vocabulary, it can make it tricky to understand. So I am in awareness of that. And I also wanted to answer a question. So somebody had asked me from another video what I mean by when I say encryption, right? Like, what does this mean? So basically that means radial encoding within each radial signature, right? Each is a signature. It's electrotonal signature that you can identify within the body and in accordance to the astrological alignments. But within each one of those radial signatures, there is encoding, or also like subatomic radial fields within that encoding. So it's just a way of basically speaking about the base level of identity within the emergence of consciousness on the planet, within the deepest level of those grid structures, biologically and planetarily. Okay, so encryption is similar to like just saying energy signature, essentially. So I just kind of wanted to answer that. So I just wanted to quickly kind of just explain what I mean when I say encryptions. And I also wanted to just give a forewarning. This video today is going to be a little bit long, as it seems to just be a conglomeration of a lot of things that are just coming to me at this time, and I'm gonna just kind of go into the depth of each thing, how it's kind of interconnected, in accordance to current events, essentially. So this global gate perception we are accessing at this point, many of us are coming into grid worker consciousness, gatekeeping consciousness, guardian consciousness. This would be when you are identifying at a base radial level within the bone density of the body, because the grid structures do coincide through the bone density, and this is also where, and I'm just going off some of my memory from previous videos here, this is also where the amino acids are stored in terms of protein expression, in terms of, also this coincides to your primordial formations. It coincides to the original founder Oraphim and original angelic identities of the original founder lineages and souls. All of this radiates through that base template. This is kind of, when you holographically view yourself, this is the first level of the light body, where radial consciousness, or the smallest units of consciousness, essentially manifest. And so as you go more quantum within yourself, that perception and that visibility becomes a part of your grail retrieval, as the grail, the ancestors, the guts of the grail is really within the bones. The bones are what return back to earth. It is a part of our interconnectedness to return information back to the genetic mother sun, to return information back to the core of earth. And this is a communication system on a greater level. And so the more quantum that you go within your own identity levels of your auric fields, this will open more dormant portions of your identity within the bone density. So this is why I talk about this a lot. And this is where this gate perception really becomes, I guess, super able to identify within yourself. And so essentially, this becomes key awareness, coming from the unconscious collective shift and particle creation in the acceleration field, as this is hosting a huge portion of the manifestation template collectively. And so this is basically the prompt to blind manifestation templates and collective manifestation destiny driven by the least percentage of awareness on the planet. This is according to the genetics sedated in denser proteins, and those genetically not designed to ascend essentially within the framework of the next 200 years. And so these are just some of the deciding unconscious collective factors, individually and collectively, that alter time perceptions for different extenuating genetic diversity, essentially. And this is what are also the factors of one's ability to dimensionally navigate, as there are specific lineages and facets within specific portions of race identity that essentially are capped at certain dimensional frequencies, like Stargate 11. This is the Nibirian Stargate, right? This is where many of specific agendas in the Anunnaki lineage don't ascend past this certain capacity. But it's not, I do really personally feel that this is not, that this is a gray, very gray spectrum, that it's a percentage of that Anunnaki lineage that is within that capacity. It's not that all of that lineage are within that capacity. So, and it's the same for the Draconian. It's the same for, and what I truly feel is that the 12th dimensional spectrum and frequency and vibration has a spectrum for all race lineages, for all contributors of celestial bodies to the planets, to the development of humanity, essentially. And so it varies a varying degree, and I think this is a lot of the disassociation, this is a lot of the illusion within cosmic history. It is very misleading to think that the Draconians would not have 12th dimensional visibility. They have one of the most supreme visibilities on the planet. This is clearly why they have left humanity the Hammurabi Code and law, essentially. Well, actually, I'm sorry, I take that back. They didn't leave the Hammurabi Code. They left the draconian law. The Anunnaki would have left the Hammurabi Code, essentially. But what I'm saying is that I think it is foolish for us to assume that these more negative associated gender race lineages do not have full visibility spectrum, and that there are not royalty aspects of their Grail extensions. Clearly, that's what we see within Draco. There's no doubt about that. So I know some of you know what I mean by this. Like I said, I really do feel like it is a process of sedation and amnesia within denser proteins. This is also in accordance to diet too. I hate to say that, but if you consume denser proteins, the body becomes more protein based, and so you become less conscious the more protein that is carried on the body. So somebody who's like a heavy weightlifter or something like that, like they're going to, consciousness is not going to be able to flow more easily throughout the organic organs. They're going to have blockages. They're not going to be able to receive as much messages. They're still going to have flow of energy, but it's going to be denser. There's going to be more density. So it's definitely going to limit ascension capacities. So it just depends what one's goal is in life. Now, it is a naturally occurring organic process that does happen for specific genetics as well. So there's just a lot of different factors to really ultimately be looking at overall. What I'm trying to say is that to over a 33rd Masonic degree, the unconscious cripple is the farthest we can actually go as an individual monadic collective mind, because we will cap at certain points because of the collective rubber band and because of the white cord to your soul group investment in your Grail diversity, essentially. Okay, so now the Trinity Collective reality templates emerge through quantified processes that are literally playing out at the gate sites. This is called gate trifurcation. This is why it is called a Trinity Gate. And I actually didn't even realize this, why it was called a Trinity Gate when I went there. And it wasn't until I actually seen the gate trifurcation through the grid scans as I kind of checked for different variations in frequency and density structure. And it seemed that 60% density of the 3/3 seemed to be in frozen light. I mean, and it was literally like those that were within frozen light, the different portions of matter that were in frozen light, were actually moving at a completely different timeline speed. And there was not very high particle accretion rotation within the bioenergetic fields of the individuals. So I felt like a rapid shift. Like I said, when I came back to Denver, it was like the rotation picked up. And so I knew I was like immediately just from going from one place to another that the accretion level had jumped up. So that was very interesting to witness and feel vibrationally. I also witnessed simultaneously, I actually could see through the active euthanization programs of the God gene, and I seen that it was since before the 18th century. So it really did feel somewhat like a zombie apocalypse that consumed heightened portions of the collective field. It was almost like a dysphoria that disassociates them of awareness away from harm. It was like have you ever seen those people that are born without pain receptors? I feel like that is what I seen, was people like not having pain receptors on, spiritual and emotional levels, and that, therefore, manifests in the physical. But I did see that it was the Holocaust of Atlantis's victory. It was like almost marking this doomsday program to run through concentrated cell memory, extenuating from the gate sites through those trifurcated timelines. That program stuck was stuck in like a time warp through the gate, encoding through damaged matter and the surrounding pre-atomic matter as well. I really felt it pull me into a phantom reality. So I've just literally have cleared that mostly as of yesterday and today. So I mean, it's pretty intense stuff. And I seen it as the same current memory that is what's pitting Jewish against Jewish. It's interesting, but it's a recurring memory that literally divides within the Grail. And it also is a memory, what I seen, that affected hive intelligences for the compartmentalization strategies of viral intelligences that basically create the web of networks and secret societies. So I quickly want to explain this through using the description in the way a particular virus works. So like MRSA, so you might have heard of metacoccal resistant staph. This infection is highly honeycomb-like. The virus penetrates and it buries its head. So when it does that, it's basically building a thick mucus wall underneath that head, okay, where the infection forms. And then what it does is it then burrows underneath that wall as a protectant to survive. And then it builds like honeycombs that literally in the skin, in the flesh, little capsules of walls where it infects, builds a wall, gets behind, infects, builds a wall, gets behind. You see what I'm saying? And it's a strategy essentially to ensure its survival. And it keeps building these perceivable walls, like layers, to hide and protect further existence. So this is very similar to how the Arc-Hive mind works on a collective field, very much like superbug intelligence. And so some of you might have been feeling there was definitely a shift that came through. I want to say it was right around the time that I'd put the Wasp Apocalypse video out. So I'll leave a link above for the Wasp Apocalypse. But essentially there's been a lot of shifting within the harmonics of continental memory. And so there's definitely, as, we're having more things happen, more earthquakes. We're definitely having more rising of sea level. There has been some continent reformation. I know there's been some stuff going on around the 5 Great Lakes, that land is shifting there. Things like this is only going to continue to bring up dormant universes, dormant historical universes, and one of those are the insect realms and the evolution of that. So there's a lot of this comes from a lot of those merging of timelines, but a lot of this insect wisdom, so to speak, I do feel is waking within portions of the collective field, particularly as a lot of these occult Stargate nations become more relative, because there's a lot more species to identify of significance on the planet than we've come so to realize in terms of the original founder nations and the ones that have taken basically the heritage right of being like the founder creators. So we're starting to perceive a lot more, and I think this is what will collectively and continually be exposed. But back to the wall perception. So it kind of works like the web of networks of the secret societies that are basically, and this is wherein lies where the rioters that are breaking out with the George Floyd protest, that's great, but we're kind of doing it all wrong in the sense that the secret societies are what we need to go after. This is where Satanism is indoctrinated and bred and fed and birthed into these docile minds, right? Through their bloodline, through their helping hands, through whatever got them there to that indoctrination, to that university. And so this is where Satanism actually comes from. This is the feeding house of Satanism, is through the secret societies. Okay, but they are essentially building the walls, and then these secret societies build the walls, and then they jump behind to burrow and build another wall within the deep intelligence. This is why it's called the deep state of the consciousness field. This is how they have continued to run their secret allegiances so effortlessly, is through these compartmentalization tactics. And this is the real intelligence of the cosmic mind, is compartmentalization. Okay, all the way to our queen. The secret societies and these allegiances, this is what it ultimately brings us to, is to our queen. This is what she ultimately does represent. And once you upgrade from the deep state or the center of the web to the queen, there is a shift in royalty blood. The royalty blood becomes, it's like heightened. It's like glowing DNA. It's heightened plasma. Okay, there's a lot that goes into that. But essentially, this is ultimately what she represents. And that buzzing we have been hearing collectively and through the Stargate signets of Hydra, that's royal blood. Okay, that's why the snow in Antarctica is red. That's why we have rivers right now running red in Russia. Russia has literally declared a state of emergency. And so this can coincide the 7 plagues. But essentially, the queen has been supposedly removed right now from the Buckingham Palace. And the word is that she's in ICU or she's somewhere else. Nobody really knows for sure. I did get this from 2 different YouTube channels, Robert David Steele, and then I also got this from my good friend Owen Glendower, who's a very intel researcher. So I have a lot of good faith in that intel. But essentially, the royal seal of Windsor has been removed from the Buckingham Palace, and there's also been a lot of speculation on the unicorns. Now the unicorns are on this, they were on the seal. They're also on the UK passport, I believe. But this is essentially, it's a representation of Scotland. So there's something with liberation and freedom that Scotland is representing. But it's all getting removed and switched around up on the seals. So the unicorn is also Pegasus. So Pegasus also has something a lot deeper to do with this as well. So if you're a Pegasus starseed, you might be feeling that you're involved in a lot deeper way than you ever really might have realized, and that you're a part of this coalition or this legion to enact the evolution of the next root race. And so you're going to be working heavily with Centaurians and Pegasi are a shared lineage. So you are brothers and sisters, you are kin, you're both of the horse. And so they're working in unison. They are a tight legion. You could think of the centaurs rising up. Pegasus would be like a subatomic radial encryption supporting Centaurians. Okay, but essentially through this unconsciousness being made conscious, this is what will ultimately propel the hive mind Borg back into like a state of homeostasis and coherence. Hopefully this is the idea. But with pole shift already in effect, the new king may be the rule of the shift, right? Because that's what pole shift represents. Pole shift is going to represent everything going from female to male, male to female, positive to negative, negative to positive. This is what we're watching. So more technically need to be able to see. And essentially until generational hexatorial genetics can see genetics, so generations that are hexed by specific bloodlines, until they can basically see back to the roots of war traumas and betrayal within the bloodline and the race, essentially planetary healing really can't shift until the majority of the collective can see through parallel and also existential extensions of interconnectivity. Demonization has got to go, okay? Because I'm going to be talking about Babylon a little bit today and how this is coinciding current events, because we've really merged with this timeline. We've really merged with the expression of what happened in this kingdom what's played out in this kingdom went through a revelational apocalyptic timeline, and we merge again with relative history. We do merge for those that carry the encodement to see it, very much similarly to how you would identify if you needed a J seal removal, right? You're identifying with apocalyptic reality fields, and you are seeing revelations play out in front of you. You are watching the horsemen, you are watching the seals, you are watching each one as it comes, you're watching the famine, you're watching these things. Okay, so it's very similar. It's the feeling or the awareness of that vibrational reality that comes upon you and then matches and mirrors everything in your current reality. That's how you know the timelines are merging. So we're very much merging with Babylonian times right now, and the leaders that worked through the Tower of Babel falling and all of the things that played out. So we're not going to get to a point, essentially, collectively, where we can see through these existential extensions because we're not separated from Babylon. This is a part of our history. And in this time, rulers and political leaders actually had the wisdom to learn to speak across the ages, basically through time traveling, right? And one way you can achieve that is to inscribe into stone, inscribe into buildings such as towers or walls or things that your country or your city created. You inscribe the message to the future humanity. You write books. You leave behind legacy to follow, to reactivate for future leaders to find what you have brought forth, and then therefore use that not as leverage, but as honor. Who else talks about this? Terence McKenna, he talks about this. This is called Archaic Revival. This is the way that rulers and leaders can speak across ages, is through Archaic Revival. This is where we actually look back into previous centuries to find answers to things that are relative to this day and time. This is why time merges exist and why they're important, is because it becomes relative to the crucial fundamental wisdom that ensures the development of humanity. And then this, therefore, is supported by the Elohim, supported by the celestial bodies, the radial encryptions, everything, right? Everything comes with this. So it's really interesting, and it's really important that rulers and political leaders learn these skills. So I've kind of been experimenting with this a little bit. I was contacting some rulers through, I call implosion into the plasma body, into the empathic body of the being. And one way that I do this is just simply by pulling up their birth chart. I feel into each degree, I feel into each planetary conjunction, and I allow it to become mine, and that's the implosion into the empathic body. So once you can identify that connection and you can get the visual, you can essentially kind of see into where they are consciously within those time wave merges. Okay, so I've been kind of experimenting to see which people, which rulers, which leaders, who's capable of time travel. So I was, you could see my Queen of Palmyra video that I did. I believe she was an Aquila starseed. I seen that she did not have the capacity to speak across the ages, and that time traveling was not something that she ever learned, and that she was within a time capsule there, literally like sand in a bottle of consciousness, like in a field, like there's like an entrapment, and this is ultimately what a lot of leaders from the Middle East, Mesopotamia, Sumer, Iraq, Babylon, Egypt, like these leaders are in time capsules in sand, literally, and their records are held in the Orion Montauk Gate system. So it's interesting how Orion holds time. There's definitely something within the Orion star system that they would be timekeepers. considering that they had a huge hand in the intelligences of mummification and death and rebirth ritual rites. So they have a very good understanding, more so than any other star nation in terms of timekeeping. And also I want to talk about the probability that your reincarnation actually works. What I'm seeing is it actually works inward. So we actually think, now this might not be for everybody. Everybody might not resonate with this. I just want to put that out there. Disclaimer, but this is just something that's been coming to me lately, is I've been seeing that the reincarnation actually works inward, pulling you closer to the royalty in your bloodline, to the nest within each divination you take. So it's hidden behind hive honeycombs and walls of compartmentalization through your reincarnation, that you get closer to the height of the power. Because when you're born with like fractured grail extensions. You're such a culmination or collaboration of such a extenuated existential extension of that unification from the time of your soul evolution 600 years ago within the monarchy. Okay, so based upon your choices in life, right? Based upon your choice at the time of death, that you would then go back toward, you have the choice to get closer and work your way to the height of the power structure. So you might come in as a peasant, but work your way up through life grind up to higher status quo. And so this might be part of the incentive to reincarnate, right? This is not for weak spirits. This is not for somebody who will come in and commit suicide, because that's not the answer. Committing suicide brings you back down to the smallest level of quantum perception within your identity field capacity. And so therefore this is not of the weakest of spirits. These are for those who come in as gladiators, those who come in as with the ambition to be their most highest potential. And they come in to play this chess game very, very well through the millennia. Okay, this is determination. This is race incarnational determination. Okay, so it's it's extensive. It's highly extensive, and it is all through choice. Believe it or not, even in your weakest state, in every state of physical existence, it is choice. We always have choice up until that moment. Now, I did want to talk about CERN really quickly here. I just want to give a shout out to a Galactic family sister and Patreon, Sabrina Ramirez. Thank you for pointing this out to me. Essentially, this has to do with the same energy lines of the Earth's torus. So this is what CERN is controlling. There is the Earth's largest electromagnet on the planet. Okay, in CERN, this is the real modern day hive mind. This is where the entire Arc-Hive resides. Okay, so this magnet, it's definitely one of the secret discerning grips that be. This is pulling us into these hijacked this is pulling us into this hijacked food source for the Phantom Matrix and full-on mind control. These are some of the things that we're up against. And this is all under the scent of the popularity of the population of the subconscious. And so this is beyond most scope of perceivability. Those of you that are occult researchers, that are up on the intel, that are that are about this life, essentially we're the hackers. We are the hackers of the codes. We are the ones that are decoding the matrix. But yeah, so this magnet in CERN is definitely the real modern day hive mind. So what we can imagine within our consciousness does physically manifest somewhere. So we need to be looking at CERN as they experiment with the largest electromagnetic magnet on the planet. Essentially, this would be part of the hacking that's going on at the Trinity Gates, the siphoning straight from the disconnect of the fourth dimensional astral collective field. This is where they're feeding. This is all to distort your visibility from seeing the truth intuitively with confidence. It's just like a mirage that sits right out in front of you, and it's pinning your resistance as the built-in victimization, victim-victimizer program from the Nazi war machines and from history all the way into Babylon. Babylon is important because this is the last pagan city personified to pagan gods. And this is what's coming up right now through these occult Stargate nations that are infusing the grids to push the truth of humanity, to show you your grail extension, who you are, what your soul is, where you came from. That's why we seek to know this information. This is all a part of the programming throughout civilizations, throughout time. Every occult star nation has been a part of this, and we have to start listening to the radio encryptions of the occult Stargate nations. And this brings us to the last pagan city personified by the pagan gods. Now, if you look into Babylonian pictures and things of this nature, I just had my friend check out a picture of Ishtar. She had chicken feet, okay? A lot of the pictures of Babylonian times are perceived as demonic. These demonizations are the root of the epitome of Tiamat, of what we are trying to get past on this planet to deeper understand our history. Okay, they are placed as blockages. They are placed as those walls that the deep state doesn't want you to know, right? This is where the historical timeline basically was cut and is still bleeding out into the landmass trauma. This is where we have wounds, literally geographical wounds, in the grid structures. So I'm going to talk about us accessing the Ishtar Gate today. This was the 8th gate to the inner city of Babylon. So there are 8 gates to access the city of Babylon. It was constructed in about 575 BC by order of King Nebuchadnezzar II on the north side of the city. It was part of the Grand Walled Procession way leading into the city. Okay, so as we access the timeline, we're going to be going through the gates. Okay, this is why gates are so important. I mean, when all of this kicked off, it was literally the Black Mamba and Kobe Bryant and Bill Gates. Okay, so these were the red flags. These are the kickers. Gates, just the word gates is what's stringing through here as the recognizable symbol playing over and over again. This is why the gates on the Buckingham Palace are being replaced. There's a lot of gatekeeping that's playing out right now. So if you are a gatekeeper right now, you're probably on cloud 9 ricocheting off into the sky, getting a lot of downloads if you've accessed this portion this portion of your field identity, and you're going to be getting a lot of messages here. The biological organic consciousness ascends and overrides, though. This is the thing. Biological ascension is a natural organic consciousness that is evolving, and this will override the CERN, the hive mind, the Borgs, because nature will kill what no longer serves the greater colony's survival, while deeper honeycombs ensure existences on all scales. Trusting in the viral part of your DNA mutations does increase survival rate. And this is what the hybrid races took advantage of, and herein lies the root of racism, truly, is mutations and the adaptability of survival. And this buzzing of the alarm is measured in the weight of the collective heart field, the planetary torus. And I've always liked to say that there are 12 planetary heart chakras, that there's not just one, that it is 12. And so I'll probably get into those locations at another time. I know I've talked about them in several videos. Essentially, they're where time fields emerge through the fourth dimensional cellular memory. Okay, biologically. And what's happening now, particularly within these gate sites, is the Osiris King's Grail is infusing itself through the manifest radial templates of the gate sites through the astral feed line. So the Osiris King's Grail line is what has been coming up. The relativity of these time merges do appear through your activated Akashic records. This is where it's coming from. And we are collectively calling this forth for these unresolved issues within the king's bloodline. We want to heal this, okay? Like I said, Kobe Bryant kicked off the entrance to the first gate of Babylonia. And then who pops up? Who do we have pop up? Joseph Gregory Shalit, the new king of England, the supposed new king of England. Okay, I'll leave a link in the description to the video that breaks this down, and how the request or the order has already been put in April, and it's been sent to all political leaders all over the world. So queen to king would be in alignment with pole shift realities. We have been witnessing the destabilization of the grids at bone density level, crystal grids unraveling, and plasma pools heating and cooling. This is just the beginning. So if you feel like you've been heating and cooling cyclically, you have been. That's exactly what's going on, is we are going through cycles of heating and cooling. And when you start to heat, it is exacerbating everything in your body. It's forcing you to get healthy. It's forcing you to drink a freak ton of water because we are dehydrating. Okay. This is some of the genetic battles that are playing out right now. Nature has become out of balance through quickly collapsing old timelines at rapid rates. We're collapsing timelines, hundreds of timelines within 30 seconds ratios. This is stuff that I verbally cannot express to you. And this is the old species rapid advancement through pole shift and rapid radial evolution, heavily affecting and quickly declining genetics and rejection of radial evolution. Also the bioterrorism, and then also return of the Nazi war machine, literally a war spaceship that is hovering around the planet has returned. Some may feel, not all of you may feel, because a lot of you are going to say, no way, no way, the Nibiru spaceship might be the Nazi war machine that's returned. I do feel that portions of this might extenuate from that planetary field. Do I necessarily think that Nibiru is the Nazi war machine? Not necessarily. Okay, so but you can also see this through the threat of the hornet wasps, right? The imbalance of nature. This is the buzzing of the hijacked resistance within the plasma swells, within the acid water, and basically the entire pH of man. So at this time, alkaline water is super, super important. You must be drinking alkaline water. Some of you may even feel like boiling frogs in a pan. I know I do some days. I'm not going to lie about that. I feel like a boiling frog in a pan. Okay? I keep seeing that the bone collectors are awake. So skulls and bones are going to be some of the major symbolisms that are making its way around. When you look around, you're going to see people wearing skull shirts and skull stickers on the back of their cars and skull symbolism just popping up everywhere, because the core bone density is revealing, this is what it's trying to, the higher self is trying to project to the conscious mind, is the core bone density is revealing the genetic retrieval capacities, and this is what the collective has to come into the awareness of to transcend negative genetics, and genetics that are master regulatory genetics that trump and basically prevent the other genetics from being able to express themselves. Just one thing I want to point out, if you're not running platinum and diamond light in your field, you're not connecting to the galactic body. You're not connecting the galactic body to the physical body. This is needed to access the 12 to 48 portions of your genetics, but this is also needed to access the bone density identity in the horizontal and angular planes in your bioenergetic field. Okay, so you need to be practicing running the platinum and diamond light into your field, connecting the galactic body to the physical body. One way to know that you're not doing that is your astral silver cord may be disconnected. Okay, if you feel that your astral cord is disconnected, you need to run platinum and diamond light in your field. And this is also why this collective fourth dimensional astral feed line being disconnected is another prompt as to why the rise of the centaurs has come about, right? So, and also the north and south node being aligned to Gemini and Sagittarius, right? We're in opposition. We're head to head from the centaurs to the dracs. So the centaurs are rising. They are rising as gladiators. Okay, this is the rise in Rome. This is the criminally convicted, those that are fighting for their freedom, those that are basically they are the professional anarchists, right? These are the core heart of Africa as well. Many of these warrior alpha leagues are from the core of Africa. So this is why the uprise of the centaurs, the last line of defense to stop the totalitarian collapse into what is technically a pole shift or a slipping into total phantom matrix. Race agendas are rising in accordance to these shifts in the pole as we slip further and further into the forgetfulness of 200 years ago. See, human capacity can barely hold a 100-year spectrum within their field. We have to start thinking across the ages. And we are here now. And yes, we do walk on this tightrope of this precipice. Your timelines are one. It is an illusion that the past is separate. Even back 600 years ago, what you chose 600 years ago matters now. It very much does matter now. If the pole shift realization could be slowed down, you'd be watching unfold exactly what you thought you'd be watching unfold. Now imagine your consciousness removed from your body and you are the sky and you're watching race domination crumble and collapse at every false flag event, especially the Nazi war machine bomb 9/11, and watch this shift as radial evolution and pole shift allows for the power structures that be stripping from grip. We are slowing down in time to watch positives become negatives and negatives become positives. So this deeper awareness into the gates we go. The more levels and layers of the onions we are peeling back collectively, like the grail quest of restoring the 48 genetics, coincides the parallels of race wars, conflict dramas, and running eugenic programs. And this is basically the crumbling of the Tower of Babel. This is the seal within the heart of Iraq. This is the seal within the last vertebrae of your spine, blocking your kundalini from rising. This is what was placed within landmass trauma. The evolvement of gate perception is crucial, from physical location on the planet all the way to historical astral significance in accordance to collective running reality fields. The future radio hologram is encoded in the gates. It's encoded in their density field, in their encryption. Okay? And not all spiritual unfoldments and observations made today are relative to these points. In fact, that's what lies the enigma, the labyrinth, and the projected reality for programming of the spiritual collective, unfortunately. And I don't want to be the one to have to call that out, but deception exists in all dimensional structure. As long as there is geometry, there are angles, there are shadow, there are shades of gray, and there is bending of light. And geometry is constantly changing form within all 12 dimensions of physical matter, which is another disassociation of consciousness that so ever takes one down the rabbit hole and also breeds and feeds like a starved child needing love, right? Because they're so disassociated from the truth that there's just this crying out. There's just this crying out for help. But essentially, the King's War and the Nazi war machine that is running rampant, in particular Grail extensions of the Drac, the Anu, and also the Keku pleomorphic amphibious soul collectives. such as Bill Gates, Donald Trump, both carrying a Keku entity, the entity in primordial being of chaos, projected out through their astral field. So please see my video and Galactic Energy Update, Frozen Light from Alpha Centauri is Bill Gates' Keku, where I break down the Keku entity that I've seen in Gates. Okay, so I'll leave a link at the top. Please check out this video. Essentially, this entity is probably one of the most dangerous forces of chaos on the planet at this time. This is converged with trifurcating timelines for uneven thirds of past, present, and future in the gate sites, and to deeper encodement of history and more planetary Akashic convergence, now merged as one as we hit and work through major intersection points of the crossed spears. So I keep seeing this symbol after I left the gate site, and it appeared in my sacral chakra. And in divination, the cross spears signify quarrels, conflicts, protecting psychic force fields and barriers, and blocking the moves of its adversary. So the cross spears is a symbol code that has been inducted upon the planetary sacral chakra of the planet for deeper protection. And what I keep clairvoyantly seeing is this is ignited through the gate of Ishtar. So meaning that these gates, because they are relative to the gate of Ishtar, because the crossed spears and the timelines have merged with Babylonian times and the fall of the Tower of Babel, particularly with the United States is current reality fields, this is meaning that these gates will not be cleared without a battle at each one, for the oppositions are head to head within a straight line of a site of attack, with 8 gate passings into the crumble of Babylon. Hence the current events of the George Floyd riots preceding the pandemic. We can expect 6 more major world events before the Tower of Babel falls. The gate of God, which we astrologically right now, we know the north and south nodes are in Sag and Gemini. We are aligned to the gate of God and the gate of man oppositionally, and we will be until 2022. Because now the gate of God has chose to confuse the language of all on earth. Okay? So what we are watching play out right now is all of the language that is under the hold of the crossed spears. Nobody makes sense. Nobody knows what's going on. It is utter and pure chaos at every language communication barrier. And this is going to continue to unravel and play out. And I'm not trying to send this into a doomsday type prophecy or prophetic unfolding, but this is what is playing out within the second and third density fields on the planet. This is where this manifestation is emerging, is from these gate sites, from this trifurcation. And so this will continue to play out, and it will continue to be in opposition until we see the north and south nodes align in a different position, because right now they're to the gate of God and to the gate of man. And this is what timelines are re-emerging. So quickly, let me just current event recap a little bit. And I'm going to wrap up this energy update because I know it's long and I didn't mean to talk about so much. It's just been such an explosion of information that's been coming through me that it's actually been very hard to put it together, but I'm happy to be talking with you guys now. So thank you for hanging with me. But quickly, the current event recap would be the pandemic of the feeding hand and their design of a power supremacy and domination, this distortion of the top-down control matrices and illusions, are blindfolding the ground-up energetic planetary reverberations of truth. This would be the rise of the centaurs. This would be the strength and power concepts and consciousness and equally distorting timelines and planetary Akashic record convergences, where the experimentation of artificial intelligence and the machine and satellite wars. And when I say machine wars, this is where there is that pleomorphic identity, that Keku that has come through and has said you are not a human being, you are part of a machine. Here is where the centaurs will be the future, because they are the rising future founder race to this extension. For now, they are cultivating from the dirt as the boots on the ground. So we will see the centaurs as the criminally convicted rise that are set to culminate into the future through the new race's determination to fight the machine operators and its initiation into the Earth's probable reality fields. They're also here to fight the Nazi war machine, but every race is dangerous. Okay, so the heroes eventually become the perpetrators in power shift and pole shift realities. So every new ruler must be approached with caution, as this new law will come with its polarity. The continued viral bioweaponization upon specific genetics initiated by idealizations of eugenics and race supremacy within the probability of all future timelines. The vaccination design sent to destroy the God gene and sterilize and retard the organic prototype. We are now going into martial law in the United States that is currently being rolled out and executed by the leaders of the anti-defamation leagues through false flag operations such as 9/11 being staged and paid provocateurs, etc. This coming from ultimately the secret societies of the Skull and Bones, Lock and Key, and Wolfhead Yale and Harvard Institutes, indoctrinations by Satanism, Baphomet worship, and goat fucking, and their acquisition to acquire a taste for human blood. So if we want this shit show to stop, we are missing some of the marks here. That if we don't catch these marks, they may be our demise. The secret societies are where we must focus the intent to stop the brotherhood of Satan, and the same brotherhood that euthanized and hexed the firstborn kings of the Osiris line and the Scarabs. Hence why there is now a new king, Joseph Gregory Hallett. Why the sudden emergence of this? Why the sudden disappearance of the Queen and the crest renovations of the gates of the Buckingham Palace? Okay, so one other thing that is merging from the Babylonian timeline is also the awakening of the codes of laws laid out in Exodus. This is known as an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. The symbol of the obelisk is very relative right now. So you're going to see this obelisk popping up everywhere. It's going to be in people's energy updates, all of this stuff. The obelisk is making its debut because it is the earliest retributive systems of justice that predates draconic law. Okay, so this must become relative in order for certain things to collapse. Where we now walk in the kingdom of Judah. Okay, Judah, I've been feeling the presence of Judah since October. Okay. It is the apocalypse of the whore of Babylon and entering of the gate of Ishtar. This is also going to be about restoring and working through now the worship of Marduk as well. And so we're going to be seeing three major animals represented by the Ishtar Gate. This is going to be young bulls or aurochs, lions, and also dragons. So these animals are symbolic and representative of certain deities. Lions are associated with the Ishtar, bulls are with Adad, and dragons are with Marduk. And respectively, Ishtar was a goddess of fertility, love, war, and sex. And so this is where we're at right now. We are in the mix of fertility, love, war, and sex. And we'll be dealing with weather gods, and we're also going to be dealing with the chief and nationalism king wars of Babylon that's coming from Babylon. So all of this is making its way as we merge with these timelines, and all of this trifurcation is taking place. There's a lot of spiritual founder energies that are really trying to prevent this tipping of the pole shift and the going into phantom matrix. So just know that being a grid keeper and a gatekeeper, working on the side of light, working, doing these activations, doing these gate site healings and clearings, this is very, very important. More of the collective needs to take more of an active role in participating in this healing, and it's just, it's just a matter of timelines coming to spaces of coherency. And us being able to, as a whole of humanity, being able to shed more light into these darker spaces, so that way we can then make the unconscious conscious at this point. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this energy update. I love you all so much. I hope that you could understand it. That is one of the most common complaints that I get on my channel, is that people cannot understand me. So I am doing my best to explain things better as I go. I am so versed into the vocabulary that to me it does feel like common knowledge at this point. So I am working on, better going back, answering questions, things like that. That's why I took a second to answer the encryption question that came through. And so if you have any questions, please just drop them down in the comments. And I have services. You can go to indigoangel222.com to check out all of my services. I do a platinum reading, which is Starseed Origin and Akashic Records. I also do J-Seal removal and advanced avatar master practices for one trying to get the sciences of the morphogenetic field to further expand their consciousness studies. I would love to help you with all of that. You can also access my Patreon for my most recent visualization designs. Like I said, I do have that rapid protection, synthesis, and induction visualization that I just put up on my Patreon, and it is powerful. We are working with the cross spears. We are working with the symbolism of Mars, with the triquetra, with the Hamza, with the Eye of Horus, and the pentagram. So it's an induction process that we bring the symbolism into the body and encode it in the chakras in accordance to the protection of your astral field, which at this time on the planet, as everything's bubbling up and getting super intense as we go through these gates of initiation and rites, essentially it's a time to build your spiritual armor. Okay guys, so I love you all so much, and namaste. I hope you appreciated this video, and I will be back with another video.